space. A powerful alien hunter boards a human ship expecting an easy kill, only to discover that humanity doesn't panic, it plans. As one, the crew turns the hunt inside out, forcing the predator to question everything. He knows about fear, strength, and unity. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? Stay with us to find out. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show us a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. The Solara Drift floated quietly through the darkness of deep space, broken and helpless. Its silver hull, once shining and smooth, now showed deep burns and jagged holes where the metal had been torn apart. The ship looked like a wounded bird drifting far from home. Inside, Captain Merrin stood at the main viewing window, staring out into the endless night. Her hands were steady, but her heart felt heavy. Only a few hours earlier, they had been mapping asteroid fields near the edge of known space. Then everything changed. The attack came fast and without warning. 3 scavenger ships, aggressive raiders who hunted science vessels for parts, struck them with deadly precision. The Solara Drift tried to escape, but its engines were too slow. Their weapons were mostly for defense, weak and outdated. They were explorers, not fighters. Captain Merrin had watched helplessly as fire spread through the outer decks. Communication systems failed, and power began to flicker. Now the lights were dim, the temperature was dropping, and the air was growing thin. Engineer Doric, the oldest and quietest member of the crew, had just finished checking the power cells. His face was lined with age, and his calm voice filled the silence. "We have 6 hours of breathable air left if everyone stays awake," he said. "But if we place most of the crew in sleep pods, the 3 of us might survive for 3 days." Captain Merrin nodded slowly. It was a hard choice. The crew meant everything to her, but the math was clear. Sleep pods used very little energy and could keep people alive for weeks. It might be their only hope. She turned to Navigator Lena, who was working at her console, trying to repair the damaged communication system. Her hands moved quickly over the glowing controls, her face tense with focus. "Any success with the distress signal?" Merrin asked. Lena glanced up, her eyes tired but hopeful. "I got it working, barely. The signal can only reach about 2 light years. There are no nearby stations. No coalition ships are in this region." Merrin felt the weight of that truth settle in her chest. They were truly alone out here. "Can we boost it in any way?" "I'm trying different languages," Lena replied, "including old Earth dialects like English and Mandarin." Doric looked up in surprise. "Humans? They're not part of the coalition." "No," Lena said, "but their ships are spreading fast. They've been seen in these sectors. Some say they're unpredictable, aggressive, but they also help those in need. If a human ship picks up our message, maybe they'll answer." Merrin thought for a moment. She had heard the same rumors. Some feared humans for their intensity, their strange emotions. Others admired them for their courage. "Send the message in every language we know," she said. "If anyone's out there, we need them to hear us." She gathered the rest of the crew in the main deck. 12 people stood together in the low light, faces filled with fear, frustration, and silent questions. They were scientists, engineers, explorers, people who had left their homes to study stars and discover new worlds. Now they faced the possibility of dying alone in space. Merrin looked at each of them, her voice calm but firm. "The ship is badly damaged. Our systems are failing. We've done everything we can. We have to put 10 of you in sleep pods to save power and air. Doric, Lena, and I will stay awake. We'll continue trying to reach help." A quiet murmur spread through the group. Officer Traylon stepped forward, his voice sharp. "What are our chances?" Merrin didn't want to lie. "Not good. Our signal is weak. This part of space isn't traveled often. If help comes, it might be raiders again. But we'll try." No one argued. There were a few tears. Some whispered goodbyes. One by one, the crew members entered the white sleep pods, which sealed with a soft hiss as lights blinked green. The room slowly emptied until only 3 remained. The silence that followed felt unnatural. The once busy ship was now nearly still. Only the soft hum of life support and the low clicking of Lena's keyboard broke the quiet. Hours passed. The temperature dropped as systems shut down to conserve energy. Marin and Doric took turns resting while Lena worked on adjusting the frequency of the distress signal. Every so often, she would announce a small improvement, a slight increase. In range, a better signal pattern. But they all knew the clock was ticking. Outside the ship, space stretched in every direction, cold, vast, and empty. Inside, hope hung on a single thin thread, that someone, somewhere, might be listening. Captain Marin stood again at the main window. Her reflection stared back at her, tired and worn. Behind her, Lena continued typing, her voice soft. The message is broadcasting on all frequencies now, including those human ones. Marin nodded. Good. Any ship is better than no ship. And so the Solara Drift continued its silent drift through the stars, alone but not yet lost, holding on to the small stubborn hope that help would come. The Solara Drift had become a ghost ship. 10 crew members slept silently in their pods, unaware of the cold that crept through the corridors or the systems that blinked out one by one. Only Captain Marin, Navigator Lena, and Engineer Doric remained awake, doing everything they could to keep the ship alive a little longer. The lights were now so dim they barely lit the floor. The heating system had shut down 2 hours ago to conserve power. Every breath formed a soft cloud in the cold air. Lena hunched over her console, fingers moving slowly. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she didn't stop. She adjusted frequencies, changed signal directions, tested every language in their database. The distress message played on a loop in calm, polite tones. This is the Solara Drift. We are damaged and in need of urgent help. Our crew includes peaceful explorers. Please respond. It repeated again and again into the void. Doric moved carefully through the engine bay, checking for signs of failing systems. He didn't speak much, but his steady presence helped. Captain Marin spent her time watching sensors, logging their hours and rotating shifts so someone was always awake. Even now, with their bodies tired and minds clouded, they held on to duty. The crew took turns resting in short, uncomfortable naps. Each time Marin closed her eyes, she dreamed of her home world, of warm forests and blue skies, of her partner, waiting by the sea. When she woke up, the silence of the ship pressed hard against her chest. On the second day, Lena's voice broke the quiet. I'm picking up something. Her tone was cautious but filled with new energy. Marin rushed to the console. What is it? I don't know. It's faint. Could be ships, or just space debris. But the signal patterns are unusual, like something is moving toward us. Doric joined them, his eyes narrowing as he studied the screen. It's not Coalition. Their ships broadcast ID codes. This is something else. Marin felt a mix of hope and fear. If it was a friendly ship, they might be saved. If it was more raiders, this could be the end. She looked at Lena. Can you get a clearer read? Lena shook her head. Sensors are too damaged. I can't tell anything about the shape or size. Just that it's moving closer. Slowly. 12 hours away, maybe. 12 hours. That could be salvation or destruction. There was no way to know. Marin turned back to the viewing window, staring out at the stars that didn't care whether they lived or died. Lena kept working, trying to strengthen the distress signal even more. I've added a pulse code, she said. Something unique. If anyone's listening, it might catch their attention. Doric nodded. Good idea. Better than a plain message. They fell into another long stretch of silence. Time passed, like cold syrup. Every sound seemed louder in the quiet. The hiss of air through the vents, the soft ticking of the life support monitor, the occasional hum of the power cells. Marin felt each second like a weight on her shoulders. She wondered again about the ships approaching. Could they be humans? She had only read stories. Tales of a new species from a blue planet, wild and brave. Some coalition members feared them. said they were too aggressive and stubborn. Others respected them, said they were strong allies and quick learners. No one really agreed on what humans were like. They were still too new to space travel, still unknown, but they were spreading fast, and sometimes they went where no one else did. "If it is a human ship," Marin said quietly, "do you think they'll help?" Lena didn't answer right away. She stared at the console, then gave a slow shrug. "I don't know, but I think they would." Doric spoke from across the room. "They helped that trader ship last cycle, the one with the fire in the cargo bay. Humans picked them up, got them to a station." "Not all monsters wear horns," Marin murmured. She stood up and walked down the hallway toward the sleep pods. She checked each one carefully. All 10 crew members were still stable. Their faces were calm, unaware of the danger still surrounding them. She touched the smooth surface of one pod gently. "Hang on," she whispered. "Just a little longer." Back at the command station, Lena suddenly stiffened. "Wait, the signal just got a response." Marin turned sharply. "From who?" "I can't tell," Lena said. Her voice was fast, anxious. It was short, like a click. Then it stopped. "Might be interference or someone pinging us." Doric moved quickly to assist. "Replay the signal. Check the logs. Was it on one of the human bands?" Lena scanned the data. "Yes. Earth Standard. Maybe English." Marin's heart beat faster. "So someone is listening." "I think so," Lena said, almost whispering. They all stared at the screen as the signal played back the strange pulse. It was small, barely. There. But it had rhythm, purpose. Someone, or something, was out there. Captain Marin didn't allow herself to hope fully. Not yet. But in that moment, as the soft light of the console flickered across their tired faces, a tiny flame lit in the darkness around them. The ship was still broken. They were still stranded, but they were no longer alone. Far from the drifting Solara drift, a sleek, quiet vessel named Ranger's Path moved through a nearby star system. It belonged to humans, a group of explorers, not soldiers. Captain Emil stood at the front of the control deck, eyes fixed on the view of a small blue-gray planet below. His crew was busy, scanning the surface and collecting samples. It had been a long journey, but they were used to silence and starlight. This was their work, visiting new worlds, gathering data, and learning whatever the galaxy had to offer. But they weren't alone. Hidden in the shadow of a nearby asteroid, a strange ship hovered silently. It was shaped like a long claw and had no lights, no markings. Inside, a creature named Karath watched the human vessel through deep red eyes. Karath was not interested in science or peace. He was a hunter, trained for over 200 years in the dark corners of the galaxy. His kind lived for the thrill of the chase, and they hunted the most intelligent prey they could find. Now Karath had chosen humans. He had been watching the Ranger's Path for 3 days. What surprised him was how well the humans worked together. When one of them made a discovery, the others responded instantly. When danger appeared, a flare from the nearby star, the crew acted as one. Orders were given clearly, without fear or hesitation. Everyone had a role, and no one was left behind. Karath had expected fear. He had expected confusion. Instead, he saw coordination and discipline. That only made him more curious. He had hunted many species before. Most of them panicked, most of them ran. But these humans were different. They stayed calm under pressure. They helped each other without question. That made the hunt more exciting. He activated his cloaking field and teleported onto the ship during the night cycle, when the crew was asleep. His gear disabled the ship's power systems in an instant. Red emergency lights flickered on. Alarms began to wail softly in the corridors. Karath smiled to himself. It was time to begin. He moved silently through the ship's halls, tall and strong, his dark armor making him almost invisible in the dim light. His first target was the navigator, Amy Rowan. She would be alone in the control room, checking navigation charts. Easy prey, or so he thought. He entered the room, but found it empty. Instead, a blinking light flashed on a nearby console, and then a voice filled the ship. "This is Lieutenant Amy Rowan," it said calmly. "We know you're here. We don't know what you want, but if you surrender, we're open to peaceful discussion." Karath froze. No one had ever detected him this quickly before. No one had spoken to him like this. He checked his sensors, confused. According to his tracking equipment, Amy was still in this room. But she clearly wasn't. Either his systems were broken, or these humans were far more advanced than he thought. He growled quietly and moved on. He had no interest in speaking. His plan was simple: strike fast, create fear, and destroy their sense of control. That always worked. He headed to the engine room, where he expected to find the engineer alone. Instead, he found Fiona Kells calmly adjusting the reactor levels. She looked up, saw the towering creature, and didn't even flinch. "Oh, it's you," she said. "Bit rude breaking in like that, don't you think?" Before Karath could respond, she pressed a button. Sparks flew from the walls. A shockwave of static energy surged through the air, shorting out Karath's weapons and cloaking system. His armor sparked and dimmed. He roared in anger, but Fiona was already gone, vanished into a maintenance tunnel. Her voice came from the speakers overhead. "You'll find I'm full of surprises. Let's see how well you hunt without your toys." Karath slammed his fists into the wall. This was not going as planned. Every move he made, the humans countered. They weren't afraid. They were prepared. He turned and made his way toward the medical bay. Surely the doctor would be an easier target. Doctors were healers, not fighters. Easy to scare, easy to catch. But when he entered, Dr. Hylam was calmly treating a crew member with a broken arm. He didn't even stop when Karath walked in. "I'll be right with you," Hylam said without looking up. "Let me finish helping her first." Karath stood still, stunned by the doctor's calmness. No prey had ever ignored him before. He watched as Hylam carefully wrapped the injured arm, then finally turned to face the hunter. "You seem tense," the doctor said. "Maybe I can help." Karath lunged forward, but Hylam threw a small device that flashed bright light. The hunter stumbled, half-blinded, and by the time he recovered, the doctor had vanished through a hidden panel in the floor. Alone in the room, Karath felt something unfamiliar: frustration. For the first time in his long life, he was being hunted instead of doing the hunting. Every step he took, the humans were one step ahead. They were not just smart, they were united. The ship echoed with quiet voices, coordinated movement, and a calm sense of control. They weren't panicking. They weren't falling apart. They were fighting together, and they were winning. Karath gritted his teeth. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was something else entirely. Something he hadn't prepared for. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in 2 centuries, he wasn't certain he would win. Karath moved deeper into the human ship, no longer silent and calm, but quick and angry. His long arms scraped the narrow walls. Sparks followed every step as his once perfect gear kept failing. The humans had turned his weapons into useless junk. He had hunted in 100 systems and never met prey like this. They weren't just brave. They were clever, coordinated, and fast. They thought like a single mind, each person playing their part without hesitation. That thought disturbed him more than any weapon ever had. In his head, Karath replayed his mistakes. His first attack had been blocked. His cloak had been ruined. Every room he entered was either empty or a trap. The humans didn't panic. They adjusted. When he expected fear, he found focus. When he waited for weakness, he found teamwork. Now he wasn't the hunter. He was the one being tracked, predicted, and outsmarted. The lights dimmed again. Another system shift. Another change in their game. A voice came from the ship's speakers, calm and direct. "This is Captain Emil. You are aboard Ranger's Path. We know who you are. We've studied your energy signature, your tactics, and your patterns. You're not invisible anymore. And you're not in control," Karath growled, spinning to find the source, but the voice came from everywhere. The humans weren't hiding, they were watching. "You don't need to be our enemy," the voice continued. "You came here to hunt. We came here to explore. That doesn't have to end in violence, the hunter sneered. He didn't believe in peace. He believed in power. But still something inside him paused. No prey had ever tried to talk like this. No prey had ever studied him so fast. He moved quickly through the lower decks, heading for the escape bay. He'd had enough of this ship. The hunt was broken. His pride was bleeding. Then, just as he reached the launch chamber, he saw a screen flicker on. A new voice came through. Different, not from this ship. This is Captain Marin of the Solara Drift. To whoever is receiving this, we are peaceful travelers in need of rescue. We are stranded and have no power, please. If you hear us, help us. Karath stared at the screen, confused. This wasn't the human ship's broadcast. This was someone else. Another ship. Another chance. More voices came. Calm. Sad. Honest. A soft loop of their situation. Karath watched the transmission. The crew on that ship was barely alive. They were trying to survive with what little they had left. Most of them were asleep in pods, trusting a few to watch over them. Their distress signal was old and fading, broadcast in every language, even ones humans used. He frowned. It was strange. These were the kinds of targets he normally went after. Weak, isolated ships. Easy victories. But now, after what he had faced here, it didn't feel the same. He had come to Ranger's Path expecting the usual. Instead, he found a group of humans who refused to give up, who worked together like pieces of a machine, each one important. They had shown him something, knew something he hadn't seen in all his years of hunting. Unity. He stepped back from the screen. The hunter in him wanted to destroy both ships. That's what he had always done. Leave no stories behind, no witnesses. But something about these humans, and the quiet voice from the other ship, made him hesitate. Another message came through. It wasn't part of the loop, it was live. This is Captain Marin again. If anyone hears this, we don't ask for favors. But if you are out there, and you choose to listen, thank you. There was no fear in her voice, no begging. Just strength in her words, even in desperation. Karath stood in silence. Then he did something he had never done before. He turned off his weapons. He walked back to the center of the Ranger's Path, sat on the floor, and waited. The humans found him there 10 minutes later. Not in battle stance, not ready to strike, just sitting tired, his red eyes no longer burning with rage. Captain Emil approached him carefully. No weapons were raised, no shots fired. What changed? Your mind? Emil asked. Karath looked up slowly. You fought together. You did not run. You were not afraid. And you protected each other. Emil nodded. That's what we do. Karath said nothing more. He just handed over the small control device that powered his ship's weapons. A quiet sign of surrender. Hours later, Ranger's Path picked up the Solara Drift's fading signal and changed course. Karath sat in the observation deck watching, the stars still silent. For the first time in centuries, he had left a hunt unfinished. But he didn't feel like he had lost. He felt like he had learned something bigger than victory. When Ranger's Path reached the Solara Drift, the rescue was smooth. Tired voices cried in relief as the crew was brought aboard, weak but alive. Marin thanked Emil face to face, not knowing what had happened just hours before aboard his ship. Later that night, Karath stood beside the window, looking out at the vastness of space. He was no longer the same hunter who had arrived. He had seen something rare, something powerful. Not the strength of weapons, but the strength of many minds acting as one,